Welcome to 99th Monkey Liberty News for Monday, May 5th, 2014. I am beginning today with this blog, which I wasn't aware of before I did a search this morning because I wanted to mention that Leo Wanta was on Coast to Coast over the weekend. And this blog is wantarevelations.com. And of course here's the mention that Coast to Coast AM radio stations, documentary film approved, but the fact that Leo Wanta was on Coast to Coast, and I have not listened to it, but Leo Wanta is a really interesting guy. The Wanta Reagan Mitterrand financial protocols that were devised by those three men intended to help the people of the world financially. I don't believe that they have been completely enacted. People are, anticipating that they will be at some point, that funds will be released for the benefit of humankind. And that's kind of one of the things that a lot of people who are anticipating Iraqi dinar revaluation cite as proof that that really will happen at some point. So he's an interesting guy. If you don't know about him, it might be worth a few minutes just to learn some of this esoteric history. We all love esoteric history, right? I am switching to just a list here because I couldn't open all these lists and have everything function properly, but I wanted to bring this information about what has gone on pertaining to Ukraine over the weekend. 31 people died after radicals set Union's house on fire in Ukraine's Odessa. Russia treats deaths in Odessa, Ukraine like Nazi murders during World War II. Washington's blog, America's Immaculate Conception Theory of War Crimes, whitewashed by Western press after more than 30 people died in a fire in the Ukrainian seaside resort town of Odessa. Most of the Western press pretended that no one knows what's going on. This is also from Washington blog. The American people want U.S. involvement in Ukraine, but our government is getting involved anyway. And Signs of the Times had this article, a non-battling illegal coup government in Ukraine, funded and directed from the West, releases Klitschko emails showing treason. I kind of had this in a way to frame what Fulford wrote, and his blog was out pretty early this morning. The battle over Ukraine will be the Bush Nazi Waterloo. And I hope that may be so. I truly do hope that may be so. And this is another, I'll bring this up. I am not fully convinced of this. I learned of this website over the weekend. Again, I'm not really putting a whole lot of faith in this, but I did want to mention it. Roundupalpha, global operation for the arrest of the world government. And this was posted over the weekend that I saw. Some interesting statements. There's a list of names of people who are going to be arrested. I think it was 747 names, something like that. It's the list of the Bilderbergers and a few other lists. I'm not, again, 100% convinced that they are indeed going to be really arrested at this point, but I'm more and more, in more of a deep way, believing some of this. A few years ago, I believed that this kind of thing was imminent, and it was in kind of a more of a surface part of my consciousness, I guess. I was kind of like, yeah, woo, we're gonna, the arrests are gonna happen. now I think again, I believe I'm more, maybe a little more tentative about it, but I have a deeper appreciation for what it would mean, what some of the implications are, what some of the work is that would have to be done, and I'm going to be following this, as I know probably all of you are, as a kind of a reminder of the kind of tyranny and oppression under which we have been existing. Here's a Natural News article. Hey, maybe sometimes under the old system, you make more money failing than you do succeeding, I guess. Fukushima owner boasts $4.3 billion profit from rate hikes and government bailouts. From the Vatican Project, here is Obama's foreign handlers' smart growth, or UN Agenda 21. Vatican note, once again, the mainstream media is telling the truth, but notice how they are covering up the real reason for what they are doing with this smart growth issue, which coincidentally fits perfectly into the UN Agenda 21 proposals. Gee, what a surprise. In reading many on the left, they honestly do not understand the issues about this case. So I am taking the time to educate them, but doing so as nicely as I can, since we definitely need to stay united as a nation, or they, meaning the bad people, will win. And I have this example of just the damage that's done in one small segment of who we are as people by these, this inflammatory talk about climate change and carbon gases, and as if it's all so dangerous. Any child who is concerned about this, I'd like to just sit them down and have a green leaf with me and talk to them about how plants need carbon dioxide. Youth anxiety on the rise amid changing climate. If it's changing climate, it's been changing since I was aware. I was born in the mid-50s and probably started to be aware of the weather, what was going around me in the early 60s. And, I can remember some wild weather. And I want to point out, different things have impacted the air at different times. Sometimes when I read a Dickens novel or see the Dickens Christmas Carol movie, all the snow in England, well, they don't always have snow in London. So sometimes I wonder if they had snow in London then because it was colder, because they had so much dust in the air from burning the coal in their fireplaces. But people who are a lot smarter than I am say that no, it's really, climate depends on the activity of the sun more than anything else. And there are times when the sun puts out the kind of matter that makes us warmer, and times when the sun is less active and our climate is colder. So these kinds of things are, really beyond our control. Now, I'm not saying that I want us to pollute the earth. I think that everybody who watches these videos is aware that I disdain real pollution like oil spills and Fukushima, of course, that kind of thing. Telling kids about this, why? I mean, kids have enough problems, and generating loosh is one of the favorite activities of some of the satanic cabal members. I can remember when I was in school, in elementary school, watching horrible videos about how many people would die in various kinds of nuclear explosions. And there were times it was really difficult for me to not throw up as a child. I was so traumatized by those. And of course, when I was a child, It never happened. We never had any nuclear detonations. And I really don't know why people in education feel a need to barrage children with all this stuff. They can't change this. Why worry them? Why trouble them? Can we just please teach them the basic trivium and quadrivium as they get older, and give them a real education. Grammar school was called grammar school because you were supposed to learn grammar. And that is one of the foundations of all learning and communication. So, hey, teachers, leave those kids alone as far as telling them all this climate change stuff. From Infowars.com, Pelosi laments exploitation of Benghazi by Republicans. And I had an article about Benghazi that I wanted to mention here that I didn't open the tab. Brit Hume grills former Dem rep over Benghazi denial. Well, how'd it happen? The story is coming out into the mainstream a little bit, and people are wanting answers. And but of course, but the Republicans are exploiting us. No, that's not it. Everybody, not just the Republicans, everybody is calling for accountability and transparency in government. And when our people die, we want to know why. Thank you very much. And Obama, this is from Infowars as well, Obama complains that TPP critics are conspiracy theorists who lack knowledge about negotiations. I don't think I'll even comment on that. We all know what's going on with TPP. The details are being hidden from the people who are supposed to vote on it. And the lobbyists have all the details and know everything, but the people are permitted to know nothing. That's not acceptable, is it? From Zero Hedge, LA County Sheriff admits Big Brother is here, but we kept it pretty hush-hush. Yeah, they did. Well, it's not a secret anymore, guys. I have a couple of articles from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. In long-fought victory for anonymous email users, Chevron agrees to withdraw Google and Yahoo subpoenas. And this has been an ongoing struggle since this case, there was an environmental damage caused by oil drilling in Ecuador. And the case should have ended with a $19 billion judgment against Chevron in 2011. Now that's, it's not that they can't afford that, but I guess they don't want to pay that. They never want to admit guilt. So the oil giant refused to pay up and instead filed suit against the plaintiff's lawyer, claiming that the Ecuadorian judgment was the result of a massive conspiracy and fraud against it. So they subpoenaed email records from Yahoo and Google. But they have agreed to withdraw the subpoenas. So that is a victory for EFF, and they do a lot of good work. And certainly, if you can, I virtually never say that when I'm going through these, and a lot of these websites have pleas for funds, but the EFF is just so professional and so effective. I think they do great work. And another way you can help them out if you can't donate, help EFF test Privacy Badger, our new tool to stop creepy online tracking. EFF is launching a new extension for Firefox and Chrome called Privacy Badger. Privacy Badger automatically detects and blocks spying ads around the web and the invisible trackers that feed information to them. You can try it out today. I have not installed that. I have a lot of issues with Firefox running slow, probably because I have so many tabs open at a time. Not sure if I want to add another burden to my system, but it looks like potentially a great tool. From the Vatican project, scientists admit a second secret DNA code controls genes. And I haven't read all of this yet. It sounds really interesting. It sounds like it probably fits with epigenetics and some of what we've considered the mysteries of life. And interestingly enough, I watched Gattaca last night. I'd seen it a couple of times before, but just was kind of in the mood for it. And it is a film about genetically modified humans, and there's a great story of overcoming there, that we are more than our DNA. I won't ruin it because, in case you haven't seen the film, what I would say next would definitely ruin it. But I do believe that we're more than the sum of our cells. We have the breath of God breathed into us, and that's why human life is precious and must be protected. And not just human life that we think is worthy, but all human life, because God says it's all worthy, because it all has His breath. We all have His breath. And I'm switching back to this for just a couple of articles here. From Oath Keepers, the systematic elimination of private property. And sure, as you can see, this is about the Bundy Ranch. And Michigan takes away the right to farm from folks in the suburbs. That's from the Daily Sheeple. I'm happy to say where I live in California, well, vegetable gardens are really catching on, and a lot of people have vegetable gardens in their front yards, and there are ways to make that beautiful. Moving on, and we're headed into our good news segment here. From the Daily Paul, weed killer formula. And this is, if you're trying to not use Roundup, but you are obsessed with having a good yard and no weeds, maybe even in your garden, actually, your vegetable garden. 1 gallon water, 2 cups Epsom salt, 1/4 cup Dawn Blue Original. Put in pump. It will kill anything you spray on it. So be careful probably about vegetable gardens, about what you do spray. You probably want to be very specific there. Works better than Roundup. Mix in morning after dew evaporates. Check after dinner. Dead. So worked like a charm for me. Just a little tidbit there. If you are gardening and you don't want to use Roundup, which is wise, it's a way to get rid of weeds. From Philosopher's Stone, unlimited fuel from seawater. The U.S. Navy just announced the end of big oil and no one noticed. I have a little caveat for this article. It's from this really wild website called nexusilluminati.blogspot.co.uk. I went there, and they have it in text. It's really difficult to read, which to me just kind of turns me away. But hopefully this is true, and it certainly makes sense that it would be. So we'll be watching that. And if you want an adventure, go ahead and click on more here and visit the other website and leave a comment and tell me what you think, please. From Natural News, breakthrough as Cleveland Clinic begins using Chinese herbal medicine. That is a breakthrough. That sounds like great news. The way my mind has worked recently, just in light of some of the things that we've watched unfold, I'm kind of wondering if hospitals are making these kind of concessions just so they don't lose all of their potential customers, because, you know, the Native Americans used to say hospitals are where white men go to die, and that certainly has become their identity in many spheres. So I guess they're trying to, again, change that, maybe at least the image, and hopefully they're actually trying to change their MO and learn some things for real instead of just giving a good image. Another natural news article, UCLA hospitals switch to grass-fed, antibiotic-free beef and chicken. That is pretty big news. I think these two news articles about changes that hospitals are making are pretty significant. Now, if we can just maybe get somebody other than the Rockefeller foundations to fund medical schools so that doctors can learn the real scoop instead of being shoveled some poop. Thank you for tuning in for today's 99th Monkey Liberty News. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Hoping that you will love one another, take care, and enforce the Bill of Rights.